What's up, y'all? It's Marcus. So guys, today's the day we're going to look at these Fuji GFX files versus the EOS R files. And we're going to be using the 85 RF 1.2 and the 35 EF L2 on the EOS R versus the 45 2.8 on the Fuji GFX and the 110 F2 on the Fuji GFX. And by the way, this video right here was shot with the EOS R on the Ronin S with the 35 L2 on there. And this was shot in 1080p at 60 frames per second, so I didn't get that crop. And some of the shots I slowed down in post. And just a quick note, I just got my EOS R5, so soon we'll be comparing the GFX to the EOS R5. And all the shots that you see today are going to be edited with my Lightroom presets and Photoshop actions, and you can find them at ProPhotoEdits.com. Alright guys, so let's get into this one. This is the Fuji GFX 50R versus the Canon Eos R. And here shortly I'll have it versus the R5 since I just got my R5 in. But I wanted to test out some of the files, you know, under the exact same circumstances because this new RF glass is really good. And we all know that the Fuji glass is incredible. So let's check out some of these files and we'll go over some differences here. So I'm just going to choose this file first on the Canon side, and I'll show you what it looks like here, and we'll reset it. This is straight out of camera, and that's with my preset on it, and we're going to do the same preset on both. Alright, so there is the RF 1.2 file, and I'll just go in on it and show you. It's really incredible. This is it, ISO 100, wide open at 1.2, and this is a 1/6400th of a second. And you can watch the video and see where the light was coming from. And now that it resolves, you can see that it hit this eye. Now that's totally shallow depth of field right there. It's incredible. But if you zoom in here on the skin, this is one of the sharpest lenses I've ever shot wide open. And then we're going to compare it to the best of the best from Fuji, the 110 F2. Now you can see all the pores here, even at 1.2. And the fall off is absolutely gorgeous. You know that I love this lens here. This earring's gone, this shoulder's gone. But we're gonna look at dynamic range, color accuracy, and all that stuff. So I'm gonna grab that file and I'm gonna skip down here to the GFX part of the shoot. Choose this file and we'll compare them both. Alright, so this is the GFX 110. Let's let it load up right there. 110 F2, wide open. ISO 125, 1/1600 of a second. On the GFX, you know, it doesn't let in as much light, obviously, because it's an F2. So you have to adjust your shutter appropriately. Now check this out. Let's zoom in here. I'm gonna let it resolve because there's a lot going on right here. And on your right here, on the 110 F2, it's gonna be a larger file there because it's 50 megapixels versus the 30 on the EOS R. And we'll be able to do a better comparison here soon with the 45 on the R5. But honestly, the EOS R is holding its own here, and it's holding its own here because of the RF glass, in my opinion. But you can obviously tell that the GFX file is just a better file. I mean, if I wouldn't have shot with the GFX on this, I wouldn't have. You're gonna get great shots if you know how to take great shots, you know, and all things being equal, I wouldn't have really missed it. I really like the medium format look, and we'll go through a bunch of files here so we can really actually see the differences. But this lens is obviously a sharper lens because one, it's great optics, same as the RF, but it's at f2. If I would have shot this at f2, it would have been more of apples to apples, but you know, I'm just doing wide open to wide open most of the time here. So you can see that the sensor, I think, is the biggest differentiator, and that's when we do the R5 versus the GFX. We're going to be able to see a little bit more of what's what. Alright, so let's do this before we move on to the 45 Fuji versus the 35 L2 from Canon. This is the 110 F2 wide open, 1/1600 of a second, and 125 ISO. This over here is the RF 1.2, and it is at 1.2 on the EOS R, 1/6400th of a second. So you can obviously see right here while it's loading that the 110 f2 is a sharper lens, but it's also, like I said, got a little bit more of a depth of field than the 1.2 RF does. Now the 1.2 RF I would not complain about. I would take this photo any day of the week if I didn't pit it against, you know, something that's just kind of next level. The color depth is way deeper on the Fuji versus what it is on the EOS R. Now let me take these presets off and let's look at these raw files real quick so you can kind of see what you're looking at right out of camera. So I'll reset this file, and there you go. It's very, very muted before I put my preset on there. On the Fuji, I'll reset this file. Definitely not muted. You know, this is the big difference here that I've seen in all regards. And they switched sides on me, so of course this is the EOS R on the right here, and the Fuji, like I needed to tell you that, on the left. Raw files. The raw files from the Fuji are just next level insane. It doesn't look like a raw file. I mean, it just does not. It looks like it's chunky is the way I like to describe the files. It's not flat. It doesn't look like a log video file. It has a lot to do with how Lightroom has been given their profiles for these cameras, you know. But you know, this is just straight out of what I get when I load them into Lightroom with the standard profiles. This isn't even messing with any of the inbuilt profiles that Fuji has, which are pretty epic too. You can just tell it's night and day, and that's one of the biggest differences besides just dynamic range and the whole medium format thing. Alright, so in a second I'll get some more apples to apples framing wise with the 45 versus the 35, just because the screen doesn't articulate on the GFX 50R that I have in the same way, so I couldn't really get as high as I wanted to with the 45 in this particular sequence, but I got a lot more to show you. So let's just go in here, and I much prefer the actual framing of this 35 shot. I really do enjoy that. But let's go in here and look at these files and get up close, and you can kind of see, you know, the eye is super crispy here, and this is 45 2.8 wide open on the Fuji. Colors are epic. Same exact preset on both, applied the same way. And we'll go over here and look at the EOS R. Was holding its own right now. I mean, in this lighting, it looks really good. Nice and sharp. I mean, you can't get in as far as 30 megapixels as we discussed already. Still see a lot of the pores there. This is a really good lens, the L2 35 from Canon, and colors are great on this. You know, I don't know that I could probably tell you, switch them up and tell you the opposite camera was the opposite camera, and you might not know the difference on this particular shot with this lighting. Reset the Canon. Take my preset off. Alright, now I much prefer it with the preset on there. Let's go back into compare. And it's going to flip them on me again. So here's the Canon on the left. Here's the Fuji on the right. And you can tell that the Fuji does have much richer, deeper, fuller colors as a raw file. Alright, so here we are with the 45 here on the right, 2.8 on the Fuji, and the 35 1.4 L2 on the EOS R over here. And in this orientation, you can definitely see the biggest difference in the sensors and just their sizes. You can see that the medium format sensor is a totally different aspect ratio, and you can see that the 35, and once we zoom in, you'll probably be able to see this better, and I'll get a couple close-ups so you can really see how the compression works from a 45 on a medium format and a 35 on a full frame. But you can see that the 1.4 obviously has more separation here from the background, but I don't necessarily think it did any favors here. I mean, it would have helped if I would have framed it the same way to show a little bit of the skyline, because that's the better shot. But I have more room over here. You know what I mean? It was first time shooting like this, so I have more. You know, there's more in the photo than there was here, so I have to back up. And I'm not used to shooting that far back on the 35 because I like to create that separation. But you can just see that the raw file here is much better over the EOS R, and I think that doesn't have as much to do with the lenses, definitely not, as it does the sensor. So let's go in here and look at these files one to one, and you can tell that the GFX is just a better file. I think they're both pretty sharp. Again, this is 2.8, this is 1.4, and this 2.8 actually looks like an f2 on a full frame equivalent, if you were just, you know, apples to apples here. So nothing's wrong with the EOS R file. Nothing's wrong with the 35. I shoot a ton with that and I love it. But if I had to pick, even if the framing was the same, I'd definitely take the 2.8 on this, the Fuji. Now for this last comparison here, I'll just show you what 35 on full frame over here, the EOS R wide open 1.4 L2 versus the 45 2.8 on the Fuji film GFX 50 looks like in comparison. There's much more of that 35 millimeter distortion on the 35. You can see it's kind of stretching her face. I got kind of close here. It's stretching her nose out a little bit, and it's not super bobbleheady because I'm not totally in there close up. But on the 45, it's much more of a better compression, I would say. It is a 45 millimeter compression, but you're still getting a 35 millimeter field of view, you know. You're not quite getting as much shallow depth of field, but you know, sometimes it's overkill. Now if I would have shot this all with the EOS R, I'd have been totally happy with it. I wouldn't have taken as many liberties as I did, because I just knew what I was getting out of the Fujifilm. I was just looking at it as I went, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm trying to do here. And I'll run through here and show you. I'll take the comparison up and just show you some of my favorite files from the here, let's go up into the 4s. This is actually coming up. I'll do a video on this behind the scenes in the studio, the first part of this shoot. And this is a file with my presets with the 85 1.2 L2 on the Canon, or sorry, 85 RF 1.2 on the Canon EOS R with the Godox light. And I didn't get to shoot the GFX in the studio that day because the trigger they sent me from Godox was faulty and it wouldn't fire above 1:1. So I got a new trigger and it's working fine, so I'll do some tests on that soon. But I just want to show you some of the better Fuji files that I got on the day. That's a 110 f2 file. This is 110 f2 file. All these are edited with my presets. This is 110 f2 file. Let's go 110 f2 file. It's just an amazing system. And you can kind of see the this is a 45 2.8, really incredible right there. This is a 45 2.8. Look at the colors there. And this is my favorite shot of the day that I took with the Fuji 45 f2.8 wide open, and I'll put the link in the description below where you can watch how I got this shot and how we created this shadow and everything like that. But I really love the GFX. I love the lenses. I didn't need another full frame setup. I have enough. I wanted something totally different, something to get me excited again, and this has done it. I tell you 100% this has done it. It has its limitations, just like anything else, but the files speak for themselves. And like I said, you don't need this camera to take epic shots. You can take epic shots with a crop sensor Canon if you have the talent and you put the time into your shoots. So until next time, it's Marcus. Tune in and subscribe for more behind the scenes videos that I have coming up. I love y'all. See you later.